are enjoying this beautiful weather. Just happy to be here talking to you today. And I had a really interesting conversation with someone and I wanted to share it with you. So I have an uncle who I have just tremendous respect for. He's a 9th degree black belt, and he lost his leg when he was 17, and he had wanted to go into law enforcement or military at the time, and he lost his dream. So he knows a little bit about trauma, grief, and anxiety, right? And we talk a lot about that. And so he was in the hospital and he lost his leg in a motorcycle accident, and it was a horrible experience for him, really bad. But he never let it get him down. I mean, it's not true. It did get him down, obviously. It got him really down. But he didn't let it ruin him. And he's always been one of my heroes because he owns a karate studio, which has been greatly impacted at this time. But he came back and he did the best he could with what he had and is tremendously successful. And he's a 9th degree black belt. He's in the Karate Hall of Fame, and he's just an amazing human being. And he gives me a lot of hope. And I just have so much respect for him. And I was talking to him recently, and he's concerned because gyms are still, I think they're just starting to open, but they're opening very slowly in our area and in our state. And it's really affected their livelihood, like it has for so many people this year. And he said something to me that was so interesting. He said, this has affected Americans and people around the world actually on so many levels. And he's like, it's not just the illness. There's illness, there's fear, there's isolation, there's money. Their money's been impacted. And he started to go on, and I'm like, oh wow. He's literally making the point that we make all the time, that illness and wellness happens in 4 circles. That's what we talk about at Amen clinics all the time. That this is one of the reasons we talk about being a warrior. You have to be a warrior for your health. You have to be aware and armed and prepared because this is the battle of your life, right? So if you've had cancer or a head injury or depression, you know that this is the fight of your life. Well, right now, 2020, for most people, this is unprecedented. It's something most of us have never seen. And so based on that, what he was saying was just so apropos to what we teach. And I know so many of you are feeling the same way. It's like this wasn't just one thing. This hit you on all 4 circles. 2020 hit people on all 4 circles. So I want you to think with me for a second. The first circle is biological. So we've got COVID. That's obvious. We have this disease going around that's killing people, right? And that in turn led to quarantine. The quarantine means you're at home. You're not exercising like you normally do. We weren't eating like we normally do because we went to, I don't know about you, but we went to the grocery store and it wasn't the same food that I normally eat. So we did the best we could, but it wasn't exactly the same. For a lot of people who aren't really savvy about diet, they were eating really poorly and they were stress eating. And then on top of that, people were not exercising and their vitamin D was going low because they were not getting outside. So you've got this, and then for people who already had inflammatory diseases or autoimmune issues or all these, diabetes, it's exacerbating all of that. And then you weren't going to the doctor for all of your other issues because you weren't going to the doctor during this time, right? Unless it was a true emergency. So, in fact, I read something that they were finding people at home dying of heart attacks and appendicitis because they didn't want to go to the hospital. So it clearly that's the biology. The psychology is obvious. Depression and anxiety, suicide, calls to the suicide hotline up 1,000%. Our business, it went down initially, obviously, and then went way up because people are so anxious and so depressed. And they're scared. And fear creates so many problems. And so psychologically, people were freaked out, completely freaked out. And then we add, right at the end right when we're finally coming out of our houses, we have this massive just blow up eruption around the country of riots and so many social issues that we're facing as a country. And that just fueled the fire for all of these 4 circles. So now the fear part of it, now we're going to go move to the psychological circle. So we've already, the biology is already affected, the psychology was already affected, and now we're going to add to the psychology. We've got so much fear, and now there's anger and hatred on both sides, people fighting each other. We're no longer Americans. It's, everyone's being forced to take a stand on some side, and it's fine. We have to be passionate about what we believe in. But we have to be really careful because that hatred really affects your health. That anger really affects your health. If we can't channel it in a positive way, it's going to affect you. And so we just want you to be aware of that. So using your passion positively is different. Turning your pain into purpose is different than just being angry and not making a positive difference, because that's going to negatively impact your health. So that's the psychological circle, the depression, the anxiety, the calls to the suicide hotlines. And so we've seen just a ton of that. And then there is the social circle, and that was hugely impacted, not only from COVID, but now obviously with what's going on socially in the world. Social circles have been tremendously impacted. I mean, just think about it. So you stopped you stopped hanging around with your friends. You stopped seeing family. Some people were completely isolated, totally alone. And that's terrifying for some people. And it makes people really lonely. They stop going to work, which is where a lot of their social circle is, or school. And so all of these things were impacted. And now the social circle, I don't even need to go into that with what we're seeing around the country and around the world right now. It's just tremendously impacted how we are interacting, right? And then there is the spiritual circle. And this one can get tricky because not everybody has the same belief system. So I want to just approach this differently. The spiritual circle, it still matters. It doesn't matter if you believe the same as someone else does, if you practice the same as someone else does. People who are purposeful live 11 years longer. People who help other people, who believe that there's something bigger than themselves, they live longer. Okay, so not just thinking that it all, is about you in this moment. That is going to help you be healthier and live longer. When you help other people, it helps you. So sometimes we help others, but the healing is for us, right? And so we stopped going to church during this time. And we stopped going to synagogue, or we stopped going to, temple, or whatever it is that you do. And that affected the spiritual component for so many people. But now that sounds really awful, because 2020 has been really awful. It's been a landmark year for a lot of people. There's been a lot of good that's come out of it for a lot of people, but it's been a landmark year for a lot of people, and I don't want to minimize that. But I want to touch on something, and my husband and I were talking about this recently. The solution is so often in the problem if you just step back. If you can step back, one thing we talk to our kids about is look at it from a 10,000 foot view. Step back, rise above it and look down at it, or look at it like it's a movie screen, because the solution is so often in it, right? So what is the solution to the biological circle? The solution to the biological circle is you need to be a warrior. Just because you're at home, you need to still be moving your body. You can take supplements. You need to be thinking about what you're putting in your mouth every day, because it affects you. It affects your mood. That affects your psychological circle. Is everything okay? Are we okay?
You received a message and the screen is blank.
Oh, did I get cut off? Is anybody there? Uh-oh. Am I cut off?
Yes, I think so.
Hold on. I think I got cut off. If you guys can see me, let me know. Okay, we're back on. So the psychological circle, sorry about the interruption. The psychological circle, the answer is to be a warrior, right? The physical circle, the biological circle is to make sure you're exercising, you're taking your supplements, you're watching your diet, because taking vitamin D, you're stuck inside. It's going to help you, right? Now we're starting to get out more now, but that's going to help. Taking your supplements, vitamin C helps. All of these things are going to help. Everything you put on the end of your fork matters. But that also helps your psychological circle, because your food affects your mood. Exercise affects your mood. And then on top of that, being able to discipline your thoughts, being able to think about how this is affecting you, but disciplining it. And, saying to yourself, today is going to be a great day. Why is the world going to be a better place because I'm in it? What can I do to make a difference? Who can I help today? Those types of questions, your brain doesn't have a sense of humor. So when you ask those types of questions, your brain has no choice but to try and figure it out. Your brain's got no choice but to say, oh, I don't have a choice. I've got to try and figure out why this is going to happen today, why it's going to be a good day, why it's going to, who am I going to help? Why is the world going to be a better place because I'm here? And that will in turn make you feel better. Your social circle matters. Obviously, if you're hanging out with people, if you are trying to accomplish something and you're hanging out with people who are doing the opposite of what you want to accomplish, you're not going to be very successful. If you're an alcoholic, I always say this because it's an easy example, but if you're an alcoholic trying to hang out in a bar, you're not going to be successful at stopping drinking. If you are, if you are someone who is, you're trying to not be in trouble, but you're hanging out with people who are criminals, you're not going to be very likely to be successful. So hang out with the types of people that you want to become like, because people are contagious. So it's really important, and probably never been more important than now. And it's going to affect the way you feel as well, and your health. It's going to affect your stress levels. Every single thing I'm telling you about is going to affect how your body releases cortisol, the amount of stress you feel. And then there's the spiritual circle, like I just said. If you can turn your pain into purpose. So if your pain has been caused by COVID, if you've lost someone close to you, if you've lost your business, or if your pain has been caused by social issues, if you can turn that pain into purpose and somehow figure out what the solution is to help the world become a better place, to help people. How do we help this become a more kind and loving place? It's going to not only help you, but it's going to help others. And sometimes when you help others, the help is for them, but the healing is for you. So my new book I'm writing, The Relentless Courage of the Scared Child, is a lot about overcoming trauma, anxiety, grief, and how does that happen. And I've done a lot of research through this process on the difference between post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic growth. And it's really interesting. They don't really know why some people experience post-traumatic stress versus a percentage of people who experience post-traumatic growth. Why do some people become better because of their struggles? So that's a really interesting question. I think about people like Harriet Tubman. Oh my gosh, right? Like she just had this tremendous mission. And so there are some people who take that pain and they channel it and they do something amazing with it. And so I started reading a lot about this. They don't really know why, but what they do know is that there are common threads. So people who have post-traumatic growth will tend to say things like, well, it could have been worse. Other people have had it worse than I have. Or my life is better somehow because of the struggles I've been through. I've been able to help other people because of it. And there's these common threads they have because they tend to minimize it in their minds because they don't want to feel like a victim. Common thread, they don't want to see themselves as victims, so they change the language because your language matters. So oftentimes, I just wanted to leave you with that the solution is often in the problem if we can step back and look at it, and the words you use they matter so much. And this was just so interesting to me in looking at one of the people that I respect so much, my uncle who's been through so much, not just this, but just in his life. And he's like, this has impacted people on so many levels and they don't see it and they need to be fighting back because he's a fighter, right? He's a martial artist, he's a 9th degree black belt. He's like me, we use that same language. And so I'm a fighter, he's a fighter. And that's what I want to leave you with. I don't mean you need to go fight like punch someone in the face. I mean you need to be fighting for what you want in your life right now. You need to be aware, armed, prepared. And this is a fight for what we hold dear in this moment. And for your health, the health of you, your family, your business. And so I want to leave you with that. Wellness comes in 4 circles. Illness comes in 4 circles, and wellness comes in 4 circles. So identify, my challenge to you, identify which of the 4 circles are affecting you the most. Take a tiny step today. So if it's biology, figure it out. Take vitamin D, take vitamin C, or just make one meal that's really healthy. Take a tiny step today. If you need to meditate and turn off the news for today, do that. Make that your tiny step, or pray. So do one tiny thing today that's going to make you feel better than you felt yesterday. And then take another tiny step tomorrow. But write it down and take a tiny step. And I would love to hear from you. Please post and let me know how you are doing better today than you did yesterday. You don't have to jump the canyon, but take a tiny step. And I would love to hear from you. Thank you. Are we turning off? Mm-hmm. Maybe?
Working.
Is it not turning off?
Mm-mm.
Am I stuck on? They're gonna have to sit here and listen to me. Sorry, you're stuck with me.